Good morning. This is a little FRS snow time. You know, obviously there's a lot of talk about can you drive this car in the winter. I've got Michelin X-Ice 3s and a little bit of weight in my trunk. I've got about 100 pounds of crushed rock in the back just to keep the weight down. And this is the beast. I've got some groundworks here. So you can see we get in any snow that's too deep, I'm probably going to be in trouble and it'll bog down a little bit. You know, there's your standard lift off the ground for me is about 4 or 5 inches. But still, I pick out these days when it's fresh snow and you go for a burn around. It's a great winter car. Get one. We're gonna do a little playing down in the park. You know, some people park these cars all winter, but seriously, this is the most fun you can have driving anything in the winter. We've got another car's an SUV with 4-wheel drive, traction control, and all the same stuff. That's no fun. Look at this road. This is ridiculous. So winter driving in the FRS. I'm at about 10 centimeters. What's that for you guys? Probably about 4 or 5 inches of snow right now. And it takes you a little while to get going, especially with no traction control. But this car is the most fun you can have in winter. I mean, I'm not sure what other people do. Well, maybe they'll e-brake once in a while and get around. And driving around in their SUVs and, you know, they're sipping their lattes and having a coffee. But I just come out to the park and have a little fun. This car is so much fun. The one thing I will say is that when the snow gets deeper like this, I'll hit a point where the ground effects, and especially the wing on the front, are actually kind of creating a bit of a snowplow, and that's probably not so smart. But this is Canada, and so we probably get 10 centimeters, you know, a few times a month in the winter, and sometimes worse. If it gets higher than 10 centimeters, then I've definitely got to park the car and, you know, spend a couple of days dreading the SUV. But once we get out of this deep snow and I get onto some city streets, it's so much fun. The trick for me too is a lot of people talk about, especially in the automatics, using your snow mode, keeping your revs down. And that's true just for getting yourself going. But once you're moving, I find it best to keep my car in the sport mode or the VSC sport mode and really use the revs for the engine to slow me down and count on these tires, because once the X-Ice 3 gets moving, you'll actually get quite a bit of grip on a light snow road or an icy road. And getting into traffic, you know what? It's winter, use your brake, you know. So meanwhile, back home, full snow, clouds are out. I don't know if you can see over there, these guys are like blowing snow, 10-15 centimeters overnight. Just took the kids to school, went for a little spin around in my FRS, and thought I'd do a little walk through, just walk around the car and talk about, hey, I live in Canada. This is how we drive in winter in Canada. A couple of things you need to do with your car. First of all, reality check. Well, here's about how deep the snow is. You know, around curbs and sidewalks, the snow here is a foot deep. Here's the clearance on my car. Yeah, not much. About the width of my hand. It's about 4 or 5 inches. Don't be a dummy. If the snow is deeper than your wing or your skirts on your car, you have to park it. It's not for every day. But you can definitely drive this in the winter. One thing in my car which is kind of funky is you notice the extra louver in my hood sucks in a lot of cold air, and like a lot of people have been commenting, these cars have a tendency to heat up, especially in summer roads. In the winter, you're actually going to boost some extra horsepower by keeping that temperature down, which is pretty amazing. So, you know, some aftermarket parts we'll talk about after. There's a couple of things we've done with the car, but just food for thought. The most important thing, of course, here we go. Little unintentional plug for our friends at Michelin. I'm running the X Ice 3. This one is the standard stock wheel, so it's a 17-inch 215/45. Not a crazy amount of tread. It's rated as a mud and snow tire, but really when you're looking at tires, my other car, SUV, runs a Blizzak with a heavy snow rating. You don't really want that with this car because really, like I said, you can't go in snow that's that deep anyways. Alright, so what else is going on? Before you jump in the car and start cruising around, one thing you'll notice even with your winter tires is that you get a lot of drift. You know, there is some torque in this car because it's so light. So around the back of the car, conveniently, Mother Nature is covering my license plate for those lovely photo radar ops. But check this out. For about 20 bucks, go down to your local Husky store, you know, whatever your gas station is. I've got 4 sandbags in here. I'm running, it's close to 100 pounds. I haven't actually put them on a scale, but about 100 pounds directly over my rear wheels. You can see they're wedged in pretty tight. They can't move around the wells. And without plugging our friends at Helly Hansen here, I keep an extra toque, a pair of serious winter gloves, just in case. I mean, who are we kidding? This is winter, this is Canada. If we get stuck, you want to stay warm. And I'm wearing 2 jackets today because it's -9. Snow scraper, brush, all set up for winter. Now getting into the car, there goes my friends from the snow removal. Just so you know, I'm not just making this up. You know, this isn't like Hollywood where we're pumping in some snow on a fan here. Getting into the car, a couple of things for winter. You know, use your seatbelt. I mean, that's obvious, but don't be a dummy. The trouble in most of these cars, it's not so much that we don't know what we're doing and, you know, we think we're having fun sliding around and playing around with the rear end. Other cars don't know what we're doing and they crash into us. So, yeah, buckle up. But in this car, we'll go through a couple of the parts that are pretty interesting because you can see I've got the paddle shift with the automatic. So back home in the FRS, check that out. It's about -9 degrees. Went for a little spin this morning, took the kids to school. Check this out. Super turbo back seat. You know, if you were thinking about getting a Cayman, can't do that in your Cayman, can you? What a day. Alright, so winter in the cabin. A couple of quick tips here. If you haven't noticed, for those of you driving in the winter, our lovely controls on our key fob here. If you're going to do a winter start, you need to actually get a winter starter kit because, check this out, no noise. Our door lock does not work when the car is on. You can physically lock the door, but kind of defeats the purpose because then you're in the car. So anyhow, if you're one of those fussy people, get a car starter. In our settings here in this car, this is the automatic, so I've got full traction control off, most likely for fun days. Snow mode, which will actually rev your engine lower and avoid your first gear. So a lot of people say this is just a gimmick, but the snow mode, when that's engaged, and you can always see your hookups here on the dash, the snow mode is actually quite effective for city driving, especially if you don't want to be wheeling through your kids' playground and spinning out and freaking out on the neighbors. Sport mode I've talked about a little bit. When I'm winter driving, assuming you've got some grip in your car, it's actually nice to keep that rev up when you're trying to slow the car so that you can use a little bit of engine braking. Conditions, I know people are going to say, hey, ice, you don't want to rev it up, you want to keep your revs down. Really, you can use your engines if you got a good tire. We talked about the tires. to slow your car and keep in control of your engine. Don't let your automatic, if you've got an automatic, do all the work. You guys with manuals, you know what I'm talking about. And that's the other thing with this gearbox. So when we go into manual mode, try to get out of my light here. When I go into manual mode, we get our gear position here, and that's your gear, the number one. People kind of get freaked out. If you're not used to driving a car with paddles, you know, most of us aren't driving an FRS or an F12. An FRS with the paddle shifter anyways. Use your shifter. So once you're here, basically same shift knob as the manual, shift up and down. You have to get into the groove of thinking, oh, I'm going into second, so I'm always going to use down. Up is increased gear, down obviously is decreased gear. Use the shifter, keep one hand on the wheel like you normally would in your manual. Love it. The last thing here is really more about driving technique than anything. And maybe that's one of the things that we don't talk about so much, but when you're driving in this car, really, really know your stuff. If you're not used to drifting, you're not used to having that tail spin around, you really have to get in tune with what your car is doing and get in tune with what does VSC do, what is traction control, what's the difference, so you know what aids are helping you, which ones are useful and which ones are not. And that's one of those things, it's a toy, right? So use it, play with it, do it somewhere safe, and figure out what works best for you. The one thing that's fantastic about the aids in this car, in the FRS, and you know, the same in the BRZ and the GT86, the aids are very minimal. My traction control and the VSC are not going to lock on and prevent me from driving the car and having some fun. What it does do actually is in these roads, I'll pop in a little video, when I'm cruising around the parking lots and around the neighborhood, I can slide the tail and the car will actually know, hey buddy, when the limit is to shut me down and point her back straight again. So anyhow, that's a little tour around inside the car and a couple of winter tips. Let's go for a drive. Well, that's the end of video number 1, winter driving the FRS. Hope you enjoyed that, and love to hear your comments. It's the first vlog I've ever done, so far so good. Having a lot of fun. Get out there, drive your cars in the winter, play safe, and enjoy. Get an FRS.